Hello, and welcome to AARP Nebraska's presentation on the Nebraska winery and grape grower industry. My name is Susan DeCamp, and I'm an AARP volunteer on the West Omaha Community Action Team. I'd like to thank all of you for joining our program. The winery and grape growing industry has been growing by leaps and bounds in our state, and so has the interest in wine tasting. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker, Mick McDowell, who will give us some background on growing grapes and producing wine here in Nebraska. Mick and his wife, Loretta, own Miletta Vista, a winery located just north of St. Paul, Nebraska. They first built their winery in 2007 and in 2012 suffered a complete loss of the winery and their home due to a fire. They were able to rebuild and open their business again in just 345 days. Mick holds bachelor and master's degrees in agricultural education from the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. He's also a licensed real estate appraiser. Mick says that his passion for growing grapes and producing wine grew after he attended a University of Nebraska seminar on the topic back in 1999. Mick has twice served on the board of directors of the Nebraska Wineries and Grape Growers Association and has also served twice as president of the association. Mick and Loretta grow grapes on 9 acres of their land and also produce their own wine. They purchase 70 to 80% of the grapes needed to produce their wine from 8 to 10 other wine growers in Nebraska annually. Their wine is sold in approximately 140 locations statewide and has won numerous awards. So with that, I'd like to welcome Mick. I know this is a busy time for you, Mick, as your picking season is gearing up now. So thank you for taking the time to be with us here today. And I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you, Sue. We've known each other a lot of years, and of course you and Steve were residents back here in St. Paul for a long time, and so we've known you, and it's been great to have you out here at the winery. We do have a very special place up here on top of the hill. I affectionately call it Mount Milletta. We are probably the third or fourth largest winery as far as total sales in Nebraska. So my wife and I sit on this property approximately 350 feet above the river valley. One thing that we didn't say is how we got our name. It's actually a combination of my name, Mick, and my wife's name, Loretta, and thus Milletta. And what we found was Milletta is actually an Italian name. So it's a Miletta Vista, Mick and Loretta's a view. And it's a beautiful view. So when you come out to a Nebraska winery, we all have outdoor venues. We have a lot of music, and we'll cover that a little bit as we go. So I want to cover a little bit about the Nebraska wine industry. To a lot of you, it might be new news that Nebraska actually has a wine industry, but we've been in existence for 26 years. So next slide. We cover the entire, cover the entire state. You can see Omaha images on the east or on the right-hand side of the screen, and we go really across the entire state out to Scotts Bluff, where you'll see Chimney Rock and some other things. There's another nice winery clear out on the Nebraska border there. And Nebraska wines are very nice. They're unique. They're a combination of vinifera, which is the vines that grow in California and Europe, and a cross between a wild hybrid grapes. And we have to use that cross in order to get grapes that will survive our winters here. So next slide. And go ahead to the next one, since we're talking about unique Nebraska wines and experiences. So in this map, you can kind of see some regions where Nebraska wineries are. We have the southeast region, of course, the northeast region. We call it the Outlaws Trail area, which runs really across the Niobrara River. And you can see a wine bottle clear up on the north border of Nebraska. That's up at Nensel, which is a beautiful area. And then you'll go across the the center of the state across the Flatwater East and Flatwater West, is what I call them. And there's about 4 or 5 wineries in each of those regions. So if people want to make a day trip, it works very well to do that type of a daily travel. And the picture of the little lady talking about red and whites is holding a little blue passport. That was our 2020 passport. So in Nebraska, we have kind of like, actually, we started the passport idea many years ago, before even the state of Nebraska. And it has all of our member wineries in that book that are participating. You get stamps, and then I think you get 10 stamps, you get a T-shirt. And so that's really kind of nice. And it has a picture of the passport. So each of these wineries are settled across to different locations, have a lot of different things going on. And the easiest way, if you get on the email list, we'll give that kind of at the end here. Then they'll send you out a weekly email of what's going on, who has music, who has food, who has different events. So enjoy the different regions. So we'll go to the next slide. So what we've been doing in Nebraska, if you do or don't know whether we've been having a winery association for 25, 26 years. It started up in Pierce, Nebraska, and spread down to Raymond, Nebraska. And then in about 2005, 6, and 7, a lot of us started to pop up wineries. There's roughly 31 wineries across Nebraska. The majority of them are in the eastern third of the state. So they're clustered around Lincoln, Omaha areas. And we have a strong reliance on cold climate grapes. And those are grapes that have the ability to winter the cold weather that we get. Like last year, we had 38 below ambient temperature. That wasn't wind chill. And we had grapes, of course, that survived that. But a Cabernet, a Chardonnay, Merlots, those would not survive that type of Nebraska winter. So Nebraska has a very strong white wine presence. We've actually had, I think, 15 Best of Show wines from different wineries made a Best of Show wine. And others, numerous wineries, have received double golds and gold medals. So that's an indication that the quality of wines in Nebraska is improving and increasing. And as an industry, we're very proud of that. Again, our white wines are probably our most prominent varieties, and our red wines are just now starting to take shape and give you some nice medium-bodied, like a Pinot, which would be our Marquettes. And then our Petit Pearl is providing a heavy-bodied red wine, much like a Cabernet or a Merlot. And so that's kind of where we're at in Nebraska. And there's, like I said, about 25 wineries in the state. So next. This is just a quick list of all the wineries that have won best, or not the wineries, but just the Best of Show awards. And for every Best of Show award, there's maybe 2 or 3 that won double golds, and some maybe even won Best of Class. So the question a lot of times people have is, how do they give awards? Well, if you've been involved in 4-H or FFA, livestock judging, and you've gone to a county fair or the state fair, it's very much the same. They put all the wines in a class. So they're either the same variety or very similar. They'll have 3 judges that judge each of them, and they will select which ones they think are award worthy, and then they can go like bronze, silver, and gold. And if all 3 of the judges agree that it's a gold, then you actually win a double gold. And then if you do have more than 1 double gold, they'll pick a best of class. And then they'll take that best of class and they'll put it together with everything. So when we win a Best of Show white wine with a Brianna, we actually have competed against Chardonnays, Vignoles, all the other wines, all the other classes. And essentially they have said, this is the best of all of those wines in all those classes. So as you can see, in 2021, we had a East meets West Best Rosé, and that was a Frontenac. and with that, which was very, very nice and significant. The 2020 international winner was from a white wine that is made out of Edelweiss. And we've actually had, I think, 6 wineries that have won a Best of Show wine with Edelweiss. And we've had several more that have won double golds. So Edelweiss has become Nebraska's signature white grape, and it is blended into some grapes wines with LaCrosse and maybe Itasca, which is a new one. But even as a standalone variety, Edelweiss is a fantastic wine. It gives you great essence of green apple and Granny Smith apple. You can make it sweet, you can make it off dry, you can make it dry, and there are several different wineries that have done that. So you have to look around and find who has done that. Jefferson Cup is a winner in Kansas City, Missouri. It's an invitation-only competition, and we've had 3 wines from Nebraska that have won Jefferson Cups, and a lot of others that have won, again, very high awards. I had one individual that was kind of saying, by golly, we should have had, and given us a bad time because we did win one in 2014. And we had a really good chiding, I guess, because they, I think, won a double gold on theirs too. So again, a lot of wineries, a lot of awards, and this is really put here so that everybody can understand that that you have to continue your search in wines for the ones that really stand out to you. What is it? You kiss a lot of. There's some term in there. You'll kiss a lot of whatever's before you find your prince, and that's maybe the way it is with some wines. And sometimes you'll find a winery that you'll just like every wine that they produce, and then some you may find only 1 or 2. But the thing is, you have to keep kissing those frogs, I guess, in order to find your prince. And those princes are out there in the Nebraska wine industry. So next. We have several top varietals, and these are going to be different grapes than what you're used to seeing. Next slide. And these grapes are most prominent whites are, again, going to be the Edelweiss. And if you like dry wines, you're going to gravitate probably towards the Ceval and the Itasca. Itasca is a new dry white that is coming on and is really like a Sauvignon Blanc or a Pinot Grigio. And it's only had 1 or 2 vintages. And so there's maybe 3 or 4 of us that have that, but it's going to be an up and coming grape. LaCrosse has been our standby, and it's probably going to be replaced by the Itasca. The Brianna is very fruit forward, can be a very challenging grape to make well, and that's all I'll say about that. Vignola is a great sweet wine, and all of these are going to be very fragrant, very fruit forward in their flavors, and Nebraska does tremendous job with our white wines. Our reds that are very consistent are Frontenac, Marquette, Petit Pearl, Dijonnac, and Marechal Foch. Now, the Dijonnac is going to be a minor leaguer. It's one that is used in some locations. We use it as a blend in several, in our number 1 selling wine, actually with 4 other grapes. And Frontenac and Marquette are the primary components of that particular wine. So Frontenac is black cherry, usually has some high acidity, is usually harvested about that Labor Day weekend. It may be a little early this year because of the extreme hot weather, so it might be the weekend before, which puts us the last of August. And I should say, on the white wines, Edelweiss is usually harvested, at least here, around the 10th of August, and that's when harvest usually starts in Nebraska. So if you want to get out and see harvest going on and see what's happening, that's a whole nother experience. So Petit Pearl, going back to the reds, is a new red wine. It's a full-bodied wine. I'm really excited about that. I think There are, again, a half a dozen of us that maybe make a Petite Pearl, and should be very nice. So next. This just kind of gives you some descriptions of Edelweiss. It's our most widely grown, and I'm just going to read this for you. So it's our most widely grown grape in Nebraska. It's our #1 selling Nebraska wine. The flavor profile is a burst of tartness, generally offset with some sweetness in the finish. And what you're going to find is you'll have varying degrees of sweetness from winery to winery and how they offset that. So when you go wine tasting, you can taste each of the Edelweisses, see which ones you like, buy those, have them shipped to you, see if they have them in grocery stores across the state, but then try the others just to see how they compare. And that's part of the fun of the tasting experience. So some wineries have had very successfully made Edelweiss into dry style. Very few of us do it in the dry style because an off sweet or a sweet variety has been our most popular. So how is it pronounced? Edelweiss. It's kind of like the song, Edelweiss, Edelweiss. And that's how we say that. So it's a pale straw color. It's very green apple, Granny Smith apple. Same in the flavors. It's very crisp, has a great crisp mouthfeel, and it pairs well with palm fruit salads, chickens, white meats, things like that. Next slide, we'll cover a little bit about bodied wines and the wine industry, and I'll go through these fairly quickly here. But this just shows you when we talk about a light-bodied wine, it's very translucent, easy to see through. So we go through a medium body and a full body, and we do have like our Frontenac Gris and our La Crescents are more of a full-bodied wine, which means they get a little golden color, which sometimes is also oxidized, which is a flaw. So you kind of have to taste them and kind of figure that out, but there's a lot of information on the internet. So next, about different wines. You're going to find that our Nebraska wines are very aromatic. We do have a lot of acidity in our wines, and so sometimes it's offset with sweetness. Now, we are able to add sugar back in. What's interesting, I think we've had visitors here from 40, 50 countries, all 50 states, and almost every town in Nebraska. And the majority of Nebraskans, they come in and they may say they like dry wines, but when they leave with sweeter wines or dry wines. And part of it is that little bit of sweetness you're going to find just makes that aromas and flavor burst. And it's really exciting. So next slide, we'll talk a little bit about wines that in Nebraska make rosés. The Maraschel Foch, the Frontenac, the Marquettes make great, flavorful, fruit-forward rosés. And so when you go to a Nebraska winery, hopefully they have both a dry rosé and a sweet rosé. And so you can try both and kind of see where you're at. So the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about medium-bodied reds, which would be like our St. Croix, which would be a dry, and or a Marquette is going to be in that medium body. Again, light is on the left, medium is in the center, and full bodies are darker. You have a harder time seeing through them if you take your glass, turn your glass kind of flat so you can see a little bit up at the top of the wine. And if you can kind of not really see through it, that's going to be a fuller body. So next slide will show us the full-bodied red, which would be like a Cab, a Merlot, a Malbec. And so the Petite Pearl is going to fall into that category. Finding grapes with tannins has been the biggest challenge because we have to do crossbreeding. And too many times with those crossbreedings, we lose the tannin tastes or the tannin trait. And it has made it harder. But the nice thing is Ed Swanson is at Pierce, Nebraska. He's borderline genius. He's a great guy. He's a grape breeder. And he's working on a variety that we have here, Merchette, that should be out in a couple of years. And I think that's going to be a nice full-bodied red. So our next slide talks a little bit about dessert wines. And those dessert wines can be ports. They can be sherries. And several of us are making ports across Nebraska now, too. And they're going to be fortified. They're going to have a 20% alcohol content on them. They can be sweet, they can be a little drier, but dessert wines are not always just sweet. Dessert wines are also fortified, and they're meant for sipping, to take that sugar and maybe the fat that we get with a cheesecake or a creme brulee and just kind of, melt that away and remove those proteins from our palate. And that's one of the secrets. So our next slide is going to talk a little bit about a sweetness rating that we are starting to come out with as an industry. And you can start to look for something like this on the back of wines. Probably in 2021 and 22, you're going to see this on more labels. It'll help you identify where it should be on a sweetness palette. And it's going to combine I'm not going to get into the weeds here, but it'll talk about pH and sugar content and how all those react. We take all of that into consideration, and we're going to put this little indicator somewhere on the back so you can know if you like dry wines only or sweet wines only. You should be able to look for this little sweetness scale and know where you're coming from. So next slide, we'll be talking just a fraction about the sweetnesses that are there, and some of the carbs. The dries are very low carbs. What does dry wine mean? Absence of sugar. So a sweet wine, of course, an abundance of sugar. So the sweeter it is, the more carbs that you have. And there's no wrong answer. It's what you prefer. Now, an interesting thing, a lot of people come in and they say, well, they'll say, we'd like to find a wine that we can agree on. This person tends towards sweet. My partner tends towards dry. And I say, you just need to buy a bottle of each, because opposites attract. And that's very true when you go through wine tastings. You're going to have one person that's liking dries, another person's liking sweets, and coming together in the middle is rare. So you buy what you like and you drink what you like. So, and that can change over time too. So our next slide is talking just about an event that we have in Nebraska. It's called Toast. It was held last year at Stinson Park in downtown Omaha. It's a great event. And we had about a little over 3,000 people there. It'll be in May again next year, probably the second weekend. Those dates will be coming out soon. Next slide will show you, I think, some of the events that we try to do across the state of Nebraska. So we do our Toast in May, and in June through August really is when people go to the wineries. They do music, they do barbecues, we have food. And then in the fall, here at our place, we'll have murder mysteries, and we actually get the people who are the guests get up and they read the script and act and have a good time. And people have been asking when we're going to have that again, so we're excited. So in September, our association cooperates with a group out of Lincoln for SIP, and that's at Haymarket Park this year. You can go on Facebook, look up SIP, look up Toast, and they have a presence there. And then our industry is looking to have a harvest or a holiday toast, maybe in Omaha, maybe in Grand Island. They're finishing the details on that. So next slide will tell you a little bit about weekly events. If you're interested in finding out what's going on in the wine industry, you can always go to Nebraska Wines on Facebook, and Kathy Schilt is our executive director. Her staff will put together a nice list of events, and they actually will send those out if you get on their email, so that you can get a weekly events calendar. And it's real simple. What's going on for food, for wine, for music, and all these different things. So it's real easy for you to kind of take a look at. And if you want to find out what else is going on in our industry, go to our website, nebraskawines.com, and that will keep you kind of up to date. So I think that's it. We have a great variety, and I think that's probably our strength. We're not Chardonnays, we're not Cabernets. We're something different. We're fruit forward. We're robust. We're alive and vibrant in our flavors, and we bring something new to the table. And I think that's the fun thing that you can expect when you come out to our place or any winery in Nebraska, is you're going to find wines across the spectrum. And I think every winery has a tasting. Now, we do a flight board where you can get 5 different wines, and you will be able to take those wines and drink a 1 ounce sample and see which ones you like, which ones you don't like, and move through those boards quite easily. So that's another thing. So there's a variety. You just have to decide where you want to be at in that spice of life and that variety for the moment, and just enjoy a bottle of wine. And I got a sore lip here, but otherwise I do the cork pop. But and that's kind of it. So I think that's the last slide there. And we appreciate being able to be here for you to tell you a little bit about the industry. And Susan, I don't know if you've got any questions.
Actually, I do have some questions, Mick. I noticed that you did have the map up there with the bottles and the glasses. Could you tell me what the bottles and the glasses signify?
Sure. The bottles actually signify the location of a winery. And then the glasses are places that are referred to as tasting rooms. I call them wine bars. And they basically buy different wines from the wineries, and then they serve them at their location. So you have the wine tasting rooms where you can just taste the wines. They don't make them there. And then you have the winery, which is making them, and they're the bottle.
Great. Thanks a lot. And Mick, another question I had, I noticed in the introduction, we said that your winery purchases 70 to 80% of the grapes grown from other grape growers in Nebraska. So there are grape growers who do not produce their own wine. Is that correct? Yes. And they just sell their grapes?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Like Dick Reed at Farwell, he has about 3 acres of grapes there. Ann Reef is down at St. Laborie, about 5, 6, 7 miles away. She has an acre or 2. We got another gal at Spalding. She grows an acre. We've got another guy at Arapahoe. He's got 20 acres of grapes, and he supplies quite a few wineries across the state. So the interesting thing is that it takes roughly 15 to 20 acres of grapes if you want to just grow to be profitable. And it was interesting. A guy that we had talk at one of our workshops from Arkansas said, if you want to put a new car in your garage, you got to do like 20,000 gallons of wine a year. Well, that's a lot of wine, but that was kind of exciting.
Okay. And then can you tell us how long it takes to establish the vines for a good crop of grapes? So like the first year, someone's first year, and they're getting, the vines started. How long will they get a crop that first year, or how long would it take?
Good question. Because the grape is going to want to set, the grape plant is going to want to put grapes on that plant the first year, but it doesn't have strong roots and it doesn't have a strong vine. So if you're a good vine dresser, you are pulling those grapes off for the first 2 years. So the third year, you'll get a half a crop. The fourth year, you may get First year, you get a third year, you get a third of a crop. The fourth year, you get a half a crop. And the sixth year, you should get a full crop. So yeah, there's a lot of investment in an acre before you get a return.
Yes, so wine growing does take a lot of patience.
Yes, it does. Yes.
Okay, just a couple more quick questions. I noticed you talked a little bit about the passport. So if one wanted to obtain a passport, do they go to the website that you mentioned earlier to get the passport?
Yes, that's one way that they can get it. I think all the wineries have them on hand. So if you come into our winery, you can pick up a passport, and we have them in our foyer. And I think I know every winery has plenty of passports. Otherwise, you can call the executive director, and she can mail them out to you.
Okay, and that is Nebraska Wineries and Grape Growers Association?
Yes. If you go to nebraskawines.com.
Okay, great. And I just have one final question. At a wine tasting, and I know that it was a wine tasting at your place, my husband and I once learned how the sense of smell and the type of wine glass being used plays into the taste of the different wines. Can you just talk briefly about that?
Yes, yes. 80% of your taste is actually smell. And if you want to put that to the test, you can just take and plug your nose sometime and try to taste what you're eating and see how well it tastes, or drinks. Do that with a glass of wine, actually. Take a sip of wine and then plug your nose, take another sip and see what it's like. Can you taste anything when you have a cold? And the answer is no. So the reason you swirl the bowl is to get the wine up on the bowl. Then you stick your nose in the bowl and you smell. And that basically says, get ready. This is what you're going to smell, or what you're going to taste. I never thought what strawberry tasted like. I just knew it. I never thought about what a currant tasted like, or a cherry, or a black cherry versus a cherry. So those are things that, as you get a little more advanced, it's not just tasting and drinking the wine that you like. Then it becomes a challenge of identifying things that are there. And your sense of smell is going to be a big, big, big part of that.
All right. Thank you. We appreciate that. We did notice that there was a difference even in the taste between the type of glass we were using, depending upon the type of wine we were drinking. So
very much
that
so.
Was interesting.
Yeah, and we have a whole class that we go through the different seminar on with those glass sizes and shapes too.
Sure. Well, I thank you, Mick, for this wonderful presentation. It was really fun and informative. And again, for taking your time, because I know you're right on the edge of picking season. And so I know you're very busy. So we really do appreciate it. And for those of you who are listening or watching, we have learned quite a bit about the different varieties of wine that our state has to offer. So now we all need to hit the road and check out all of those wonderful wineries. And thank you also for joining us today. If you enjoyed the presentation, please hit the like button and share it on your Facebook page so that more people have the opportunity to learn what we did today. Thank you all, and thank again, Mix.
Thank you, Susan.